Good morning and welcome to the Yarn Chicken. Today I have a video for you sock lovers out there, and not the creepy kind. I mean, you do you, keep it to yourself. It's not my thing. Knitting socks, that is my thing. So I knit a pair of gingham socks. I freehanded them from my own brain and some inspiration from Cool Stitches. I will leave her pattern down below if you want to check it out. I knit this over the course of several weeks. This was an interesting knit, but it was also a quite challenging knit to figure things out and to get proper gauge. And this is also a new fabric for me, or new yarn composition for me, so I had to get a feel for it. So now that you know what you're getting, let's get into the video. So these socks are knit on a 3mm needle, and I'm using the Järbo Tencel Raggi, which is a sock yarn with a mix of wool and tencel, so the wooden cellulose sort of giving it a bit more durability. I've never worn socks made out of this fibre composition, and it's the first time I'm working with it as well. And I can tell you the sensory experience isn't great, but I really like the end effect of how the fabric turned out. But the initial 66 stitches that I cast on ended up being too tight, and I had to rip back the work that I'd done so far. Okay, so the lighting is shit, I realise that, but I wanted to show you my progress, or talk a bit about my progress, because I had to rip back what I had knit day before yesterday, because the gauge was just too tight, or rather the gauge was fine. I like the result, but it was too small of a circumference around the foot, so I had to add 6 more stitches because this is a 6-stitch repeat. So now I'm up to 72 stitches in the round, and I'm still not absolutely loving the colour combination. On the website, this gave me the impression that it would be much more yellow, and this is very much a light brown colour. I mean, there are ways to describe that colour that are not very appealing, but together with the darker brown, I think they make I want to say that they make a cool contrast in a retro kind of way. So I ripped back the 66 stitches that I had in the last iteration, and now I'm nearly at the point where I've knit as much as I ripped back. So I'm waiting now for delivery. That's why I'm in the very dark office. So I have a little while longer before our next board meeting starts. I came from work a bit earlier than I had anticipated. Due to traffic, it became quicker than I thought. So I will be continuing on with this. I'm fairly certain that it will fit well this time around, because it was just a bit too snug. It did fit over my heel, but it wasn't a comfortable fit. And now I think it's going to be a comfortable fit. So the ribbing, just like last time, I did with a 2.5mm needle, and then I switched to the 3mm needle for the rest of the pattern. So that is the update on my retro gingham sock. And oh yeah, I wanted to tell you about the experience of knitting with the tencel mix. It is such a strange feeling the Tencel fiber makes it almost, I mean, you can really feel the wood in it. So it has ever so slightly the feeling of, an ice cream stick. That feeling against the fingers. So it's not as egregious as it would be if I ate it. But I just cannot imagine chewing this yarn, which is good because you're not supposed to chew it. But I think that this is definitely a yarn I will be using for socks and absolutely nothing else. Maybe accessories, maybe like a toy. I was thinking about this because this is an impossible color. This diarrhea greenish light brown. It just makes me think of diapers, honestly. But if I use this with a mohair or a fuzzy yarn of some sort, maybe I could knit some frogs with this, and frogs are on my to knit list for this Christmas. So the dark brown, that is a good color. I can make something out of those. I could even make a textured sock with this. I'm not at all worried that I won't get use out of this, but this color is just impossible on its own, so I would have to mix this with something else and use it with a high enough contrast that you can think about bowel movements when you see it.
Pretty decent size. And then I'm not going to count these, but like I'm going to guess several hundred squares left over. So my plan was to write about that, and that's going to potentially be the largest bias tape. That was weird. It's on like a bias tape tie. I might do some with like a fold, so we have some weird wavy lines on some. Now I can cut a slit down the center. I'm gonna do 8 inches on this first one, although that might be a bit longish. And then it's time to bind the edges. Promptly forgot how to bind a straight slit like this and had to pull out the old YouTube to tell me how. But then I didn't really like how it
I'm just filming update after update after update, and my breakfast is standing here getting cold. But I have so many things to update on. I should probably film another knitting podcast episode to update everything. So the first gingham sock is finished. This is how it's looking. I haven't blocked it, I haven't washed it. I think it's interesting to see how the angle of the foot looks different in different textures, because this feels quite stiff in comparison, so it can't really lay flat. Granted, it's not blocked, but the foot is snug enough. It's not too snug for the size that I'm knitting. The toe, I did a more gradual or rounded shape as opposed to the two side seams sort of that I'm used to knitting. So for example, on my watermelon socks that you might have seen in a knitting podcast, I have 2 seams of decreases on either side, and with this I tried a more gradual decrease, but that made the toe portion a bit too long, so I will have to rip back basically all of the toe portion to remake with a bit of a smaller number of rows between, because I don't think it needs a lot less length, but seeing as the person I'm giving these to has the same foot size as I do, and this was a good 1.5 centimeters too long for me unblocked, I don't want her to have like a bunch of scrunched up fabric in the toe of her boot. So I'm ripping this back and re-knitting it. Then I am giving myself a pause, a break from the gingham socks, because they have been a challenge in a few different ways. Not necessarily construction wise, because
once I found the proper gauge or the proper number of stitches for this, I feel like it went fairly well. The heel flap with slipped stitches is now the second slip stitch heel I'm making, and I think I like it. This is the first. Hang on. I've knit this heel flap a bit longer because I think that will make a more reasonable fit. The decreases, that was tricky. After the heel flap, figuring out how to continue the colour work immediately after and finding a way to travel with the yarn to the right spot, that was tricky. And I didn't manage it perfectly at all, but I managed it well enough. And I don't think that the colour, the pattern is too disrupted by this seam, so it looks like an eyesore. And if someone looks this closely at a pair of hand knitted socks, they should, and they don't look at them with appreciation, they should get a life. I will look at hand knitted socks with appreciation to try and figure out how was it made, and this looks like such a tricky, creative way of solving a problem, or okay, they encountered this problem and I see that they tried to fix it and this is the way that they tried and that is serviceable. So I'm not going to be judging, but if a non-knitter were to look at this and be like, the stitch repetition is a bit strange. The colours don't line up in the very first row, I would be concerned about their mental health, because they should find something beautiful and fun to do with their time instead. They should start knitting. But that is the Gingham sock update for now. It's the 2nd of November today, and I don't remember when I cast these on, because is this the third or second version? I've had these socks on my needles for this sock for a few weeks, I'm fairly certain. And I'm not necessarily jumping at the thought of picking up and casting on the second one. The only thing that is saving me is the fact that it will be reversed in colour. So I want to see how different that will make the colour work look. Because if the dark brown being dominant changes the look completely, maybe that's something new to learn as well. That would be interesting. But I'm now going to eat my breakfast. I am now going to eat my breakfast and see what I find to knit on after that. Hi, good morning. So I am currently doing an online training, and that means knitting time. So I finished my first sock and now I'm working on the second one, and I am finding it quite interesting to compare the colour dominance, because on the light brown I held the light brown in to my left, so the floats that went underneath, and now I'm holding the dark brown in the same position, so nothing else has changed, but it is looking, I think, quite different because of the colour dominance. So that is a part of the experiment that I wanted to conduct this autumn, because I wanted to see how tension, colour work, colour dominance would play out. So I finished the sock, finished the heel, and I did mess up the calculations of the pickup rate, not pickup rate, but the picked up stitches, which colour would go where. So this first repeat is wonky, but honestly, who is going to notice? once it's finished, no one is going to see that. And now, yeah, now I'm back to the training. So I will continue knitting this. It's in my fingers now. I don't need to think about it. I can just knit and knit and knit and knit, and I will continue doing so all of today.
Första masken.
Stiligt.
De andra i vägen. Följ lite away. Så, det blev det.
Du måste flytta på dig. After finishing the second sock, I realized that the first sock was just a bit too long, and the best way to solve it would be to rip back and do one pattern repeat less. So I did that, undid the toe that I had knit and the last pattern repeat, re-knit the toe, and that ended up being a perfect fit, just like the second sock. So there we have it, another gift knit finished. I honestly really enjoyed this process, the mental part of it at least, because the stitch repeat is a 6-stitch repeat. It's not too difficult to figure out. I did have to think 2 steps ahead when it came to picking up stitches for the sock or the heel flap and gusset, for example. But honestly, I made it very easy for myself with just a single colour toe. And I think the fit is really good. This is the fit that I have found works best for me and for most of the people that I gift knit for. The doubt that I had about the colour selection is long gone. I really like it, especially with blue jeans. It looks great. And I think that my sister-in-law is really going to like this a bit kooky yet classic colour combination and pattern in combination with a colour combination. So I think this is going to be a very well received gift knit. The only thing that I worry about is how it's going to wear. I don't know, because I haven't ever worn and washed Tencel wool blend socks. So I'm going to have to get back to you on that. I'm going to hound my sister-in-law for updates after a few washes to see how they actually wore. But this was a good project for me, and I think it's going to be a good gift to receive. So this was a win all across. But as I said previously, that isn't something that I was convinced of for the entirety of this project. So I'm glad that I gave myself time enough for this project to actually have the ups and downs, because if I had had a time crunch on this, I would probably have enjoyed it far less and been far less content with it today. So now the question is if I want to wash them once to even out the floats a bit, or if I just give it to her like this. I have time, so I'll probably wash them. I don't do any fancy blocking for my socks. Honestly, I don't even wash them most of the time before giving them away, because they're going on feet to be worn and then going to be washed anyway, so they don't need any fancy blocking. And I haven't yet branched out into fancy lace socks that would benefit from a block, so I will see what I do. But That is all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please click the subscribe button and the like button. Leave me a comment about what you're knitting on today. I'm very curious to see what people knit on now in the month of December. And if you have any questions for me about this, leave them down below as well. I highly recommend Cool Stitches for her pattern if you need a full actual tutorial about how to do this yourself and you don't want to figure it out yourself. I have found her previous patterns quite easy to understand and very clear, and I like her way of explaining things. So although I haven't looked at this particular pattern, if you want to check that out, it's a pay as you can, pay what you can pattern. So give her a small token of your appreciation in exchange for her gorgeous pattern. So if you're in the mood for more Christmas gift knitting related content, click right here and that will take you to the playlist for my Vlogmas 2025. It is a Vlogmas series, but honestly I think most of the videos are fine to watch even if you're watching this in July. So I hope you enjoyed the video today. I hope you enjoy those videos as well. If you do, if you did, click right there to subscribe, and I hope to see you in my next video. Thank you. Bye.